Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers and sisters and dear friends. I'm here with Zishan. We're going to be reacting to something amazing that brother Yusuf Bassem. His name's Bassem Youssef or Yusuf Bassem?
Bassem Youssef.
Bassem Youssef. Okay, alhamdulillah. We're going to inshallah watch this, where he's an interview. I think it's in the UK.
Okay.
I think what's it called? Time Radio. Yes, inshallah. Let's see. So this is what happened, inshallah, and what triggered him to say Israel can go F himself. Or F themselves.
Okay, interesting.
Condemned Hamas, and you recognize Israel's right to exist as well.
What is?
So they're responding to an interview that Bassem Youssef had on radio on a British radio channel, and at some point he said Israel could go F off, and they're celebrating this. So this is the context. So now let's listen to what Bassem had to say and why these people are now celebrating it.
Interesting.
Condemned Hamas, and you recognize Israel's right to exist as well.
What is the use of this kind of question?
Oh Lord, nothing new, nothing changed, same old shit.
Just
no. Why is this has to be like a checkpoint? Does Britain have the right to exist?
Nice.
I think so.
What about the Palestinians' right to exist? Why is this like moral checkpoint? Does the Israel is this like supposed to scare me? What about the Palestinians' right to exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Lots of people believe in the
But not Israel.
solution.
So Israel wants us to acknowledge its
The
right to
Israeli
exist.
government.
The Israeli government and the people who voted for them was, by the way, that like their society is becoming more and more radical. But like, let's say Israel government, like they put us through all of these moral checkpoints. Does Israel have the right to exist? Does Israel have the right to defend itself? But when we ask them the same question about Palestinians, they have all of these like whining answers that they don't want to exist. They don't even want the right to other people to exist.
It's true. We're all in danger.
It doesn't make sense anymore. You understand? Does it make sense to you? This whole idea about like the moral checkpoint question that doesn't like lead to anywhere. And then when we ask the same question about Palestinians, we are faced with like all kinds of things about they're terrorists, they're animals.
For these horrible, inhuman animals.
It just like doesn't make sense.
Yes, we could talk about this endlessly.
Like all of these questions doesn't make it. It just fills the air. Useless questions. Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Israel? Do you condemn Israel? Does it matter if you condemn Israel? We've been condemning Israel. They're doing whatever they want.
Yes.
These are like, haven't you just like reached a point where you're looking at these questions are very stupid?
Emotional damage.
Here's the thing about like Israeli spoken. Naftali Bennett went on one day on Al Jazeera. And he said, not every people in the world have the right to exist. The Kurds doesn't have a say. The people in the Bas doesn't have the right.
Not everyone in the world who wants a state gets one. The Kurds, for example, don't have a state. They want one. The Basques want a state. They don't have one.
But when it comes to Israel, it's all about their right.
Israel have the right to defend itself. Israel had the right to exist. And I would say, like, Israel have the right to go fuck itself.
What do you make out of that? Because like,
all right, so that was a lot of nonsense, and a lot of people, you know, who are supporters of Israel recognize everything that he said as nonsense, but unfortunately, they don't have. Many people don't have the arguments, you know. Maybe they have it in their mind, but they're not very good in explaining why the things that he's saying are wrong. I mean, many of you already know how to respond to this, but I just want more people to be able to not just say, well, this guy is obviously wrong. That's not good enough. So let's do this together. Let's go from the beginning again and then respond to everything he says line by line. Okay?
Bassem Youssef or Yusuf Bassem?
Bassem Youssef.
Bassem Youssef. Okay, alhamdulillah. We're going to inshallah watch this. An interview, I think it's in the UK.
Okay.
I think what's it called? Time Radio. Yes, inshallah. Let's see. So this is what happened, inshallah. And what triggered him to say Israel can go F himself or F themselves.
Okay, interesting.
Condemned Hamas, and you recognize Israel's right to exist as well.
What is the use of this kind of question?
So what is the use of asking this question? Does Israel has a right to exist? Well, because you don't recognize Israel's right to exist. A lot of you don't. And the purpose of the question is to understand, where do you stand on this? Like, it's so bizarre to be questioning the question. This is a very legitimate question. We have a nation state that is being threatened to be annihilated more than any other nation state on the planet. Give me an example of another nation state. Is there any other country on this planet that is as threatened as Israel? Is any other nation state's right to existence challenged as much as Israel? So when you are criticizing Israel, as you should be able to do so, I mean, I criticize everybody who loves Israel criticizes Israel, because that's how you get better. But we have to be able to distinguish between people who are criticizing Israel because they want the best for Israel, because they love Israel, and the people who are criticizing Israel because they want to end Israel, because they don't even recognize Israel's right to existence. That's the purpose of that question. So you're like, what is the purpose of the question? Because we want to know which camp. Are you the enemy of Israel or not? It's a very legitimate question. I don't understand what's your problem. You're coming to an interview. The interviewer needs to understand where you're standing, and it's a perfect question. In fact, it should be any interviewer that is not asking that question. Then you should be complaining. Do you accept Israel's right to existence? Do you condemn Hamas? Given that so many people who are acting like they are, I don't know, sound-minded people who have legitimate views that could be accepted by mainstream people within the mainstream, given that so many people who think they're supporting Palestinians, they're actually supporting evil people set for genocide of Jewish people and the destruction of the state of Israel. So many people think that they're supporting the rights of Palestinians, or they're supporting Palestinians right to have a peaceful life or to be free from suffering. They think that they're doing a good thing. They don't know the evil that they're supporting. So every time you're coming and taking a position against Israel, we need to ask that question to make it clear that by you avoiding answering that question, to make it clear to the people who think that they're supporting human rights, that they're actually supporting terrorism, that they're actually supporting Hamas, that they're actually supporting people who want the destruction of Israel. That is the point of that question, and it should be asked every single time. Every single time that question should be asked. But the main purpose, as I mentioned, is so that the people who think they're on the pro-Palestinian side, they actually have to realize they're not pro-Palestinian. They're pro-genocide. They're anti-Jewish. They're anti-Israel. They're anti-Israel's right to existence. They're supporting terrorist groups. That's what we need to make clear, because your refusal to answer that question is telling, and you trying to challenge the question. So this interviewer seems to have been weak, okay? Because when you challenge that question is because you're trying to distract the audience from the fact that you're avoiding the question. Because there's three options that you have here. As somebody who supports Hamas, or as somebody who wants the destruction of Israel, you could either transparently say it, no, I don't recognize Israel's right to exist. So basically, that would out you as a pro-genocide person, because the destruction of the state of Israel will bring in the greatest act of genocide in modern history. That would be the beginning of the greatest bloodshed of Jewish people that we have ever experienced, even more than World War II. So that's the first option, for you to transparently say that, yes, I am against the Israel existing as a country, right? Or two, you could avoid the question and don't answer it. Don't condemn Hamas, or don't recognize Israel's right to exist. And that would be telling and the interviewer's job at that point would be to show that, okay, your refusal to answer this question is telling. That would be the interviewer's job. But the third option, which is the option of Muhammad Hijab, these people, Bassem Youssef, is to avoid the first and the second one, because they know that they're supporting evil, and they don't want the liberal-minded people in the West to recognize what they're supporting, right? So to avoid number one and number two, what you have to do is avoid answering the question, but then attack the interviewer for asking that question. And this is what a lot of people have recognized, that this is the best strategy. So I won't condemn Hamas. I won't recognize Israel's right to exist, but I will also attack the interviewer. even if I have and there's also a fourth option of people who have condemned Hamas at some point or have recognized Israel right to existence at some point, but they use that as an anchor so that other times they don't have to, so that they are promote the idea that the people who are actually supporting Hamas or against Israel's right to existence use their lines, use their narrative so that they don't have to answer this. So now the interviewer, instead of being in offensive mode, now has to be on a defensive mode in defending himself or herself for asking that question. And quickly in the mind of the audience, the mind shifts, the attention shifts to, oh, right, yeah, why did you ask this question? Instead of wondering, why is Bassem not answering the question? Now the audience is thinking, yeah, why should you even ask that question? So that's the trick. And the interviewer shouldn't fall for it. The interviewer should be like, okay, I will answer you, but first answer me. You're asking me why I'm asking this question. I will explain to you. But I ask the question first. Answer me, and then I will justify the question. And if the person constantly refuses to answer that question, you have to shift from Bassem or Ahmadinejad to the camera, to your audience, and make sure that everybody is understanding what's happening here. And ask the audience, why do you think they're not answering this? Why do you think this is such an easy question? I have asked this person multiple questions throughout this interview, and this person has not challenged me in asking these questions. They have easily answered me multiple times. But all of a sudden, this question is a step too far. And the interviewee is acting like this is distracting or a time waste. How come the other questions were okay and easily answerable? But this question, all of a sudden, I shouldn't be even asking that. In fact, one thing I suggest the interviewer to do is to ask whether they think there should be a Palestinian state. Okay, that's what they should start with. Do you think there should be a Palestinian state? So that they answer yes, and then ask them if Israel has the right to exist. Because if they then want to complain or challenge the question, you wonder, like, wait a second, I asked you if there should be a Palestine, and you had no problem answering that. But now when it comes to Israel, why this is a time waste and a distraction? Or ask them if they condemn Netanyahu before you ask them if they condemn Hamas. And if they answer yes, once you get to Hamas, when they start complaining about the question, you could show the double standard to your audience. That's what the interviewer should be doing. So he could be secular, but guess what? Saddam was kind of secular relative to people around him, right? The Pan-Arabists were secular. The PLO is relatively much more secular than Hamas. They were also terrorists. So yeah, so just because you're secular, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not supporting something that is eventually will lead to genocide. But let's listen to everything else he has to say, because we're only a few seconds in.
Or nothing new, nothing changed, same old shit.
Yeah, same old shit. Be like, oh, you're always asking the same question. Yeah, because it's telling, because you refuse to answer it, because it works. This question has utility. That's why we should keep asking it.
No. Why is this has to be like a checkpoint? Does Britain have the right?
Why? Because you fail at it every time. Like, why is this a checkpoint? Why do you have to? Why do you keep asking us if Israel has the right to exist? Why is this a checkpoint? Because it exposes you. It has so much utility that we have to keep using it.
Nice. I think so.
What about the Palestinians' right to exist?
See, look at this. He doesn't understand even the question that is being asked of him. He says, "What about the Palestinians' right to exist?" The question, you don't even understand what is being asked of you. The question was not the Israelis' right to exist. The question was Israel's right to exist as a nation state. So the Palestinian rights to exist, of course they have the right to exist. Whether they have a state or not, they have the right to exist. But you are confusing about people, individual. The question was whether this nation state of Israel has the right to exist. the nation state. So when it comes to Palestine, we don't have a nation state of Palestine yet, partly because of you idiots, partly because you are defending people who fight Israel. If you weren't fighting Israel all the time, if you recognize, actually, the first question is relevant to the second question. If you had recognized Israel's right to exist, we would have Palestinian as a nation state ages ago. The fact that we don't have a Palestine as a nation state, not now, not ever before, there has never been a country called Palestine, never. But it would have been nice to have a country called Palestine if you guys were not anti-Israeli and attacking Israel all the time and challenging Israel's right to exist. So if you want Palestine to be a nation state, maybe answer the first question with a firm positive. Yes, Israel is a nation state and has the right to exist, and go convince more Palestinians that Israel is a nation state and has the right to exist. That will lead eventually to you having Palestine as a nation state. Because every time Palestine was offered to you as a nation state, you were like, not your answer every single time was not if Israel gets to be a nation state as well. That's why Palestine is not a nation state. So your response shows how unaware you are of the question that is being asked here. You're like, what about Palestinians' right to exist? You should be at the question that would match the question from the other side. What about Palestine existing as a nation state? Not the Palestinians' right to exist. What about Palestine's right to exist? Well, Palestine, as of right now, as a nation state, doesn't have a right to exist because it's not recognized as a nation state. We could move to a world where it is a nation state and therefore would have the right to exist as a nation state if you were not so anti-Israeli. The Palestine that you want as a nation state to exist was offered to Palestinians 5 times. Every time they said no, because it's all or none. As long as Israel gets to exist, we say no to our own nation state. It was Palestinians that refused themselves a nation state, unfortunately. Well, not all, but most of them.
Why is this like moral checkpoint? Does Israel is this like supposed to scare me?
Yeah, it is supposed to scare you, and you are scared. If you were not scared, you would just answer. You were like, yes. You are so terrified of this question that instead of answering it, you have to attack the interviewer. Because if this question was not scaring you, you would just say yes, and you would move on. This is kryptonite to you. It paralyzes you. You go in attack mode when somebody attacks you. This is the sign of somebody being scared of a question. Why wouldn't you answer it if you were not scared? Hey, it's easy. Does Israel have the right to exist? Yes. Next question. Easy. This is how you could have disarmed the interviewer, but you're scared. You don't want to. You know why you don't disarm the interviewer like that? You know how easily it would have been for you to move on to the next question and disarm the interviewer? Imagine how badass that would be if the interviewer says, do you accept Israel's right to exist? Like, yes. Next question. That would be a mic drop moment. As a defender of Palestinians, you're like, yeah, I accept Israel's right to exist. What about it? Next question. But do you know, this is what I want the audience to understand. The reason why you can't do that mic drop moment where you just say yes and make the interviewer feel like even stupid to even challenge you on that, to assume that you don't, because you know, here's the thing, even if Bassem is anti-Hamas, even if Bassem thinks like, okay, sure, Israel should be, he knows that his fans are pro-Hamas. He knows that his fans want the destruction of Israel. It's because of his awareness of his fans and the people that follow him. He reads the comments of the people who are celebrating as such a pro-Palestinian. He doesn't want to lose them. He doesn't want to disappoint them. That's why he is afraid of this question. That's why instead of answering it, he has to go on attack mode.
What about the Palestinians' right to exist?
Yes.
Palestinians have the right to exist, obviously. Obviously. You mean Palestine? Your question is the wrong question. All humans have the right to exist. You're asking about humans. He was asking you about a nation state. You're asking about humans. You should be asking about the nation state of Palestine, which doesn't exist yet. And that's why, no, Palestine does not have the right to exist as a nation state yet. Maybe you could work on Palestinians so we could get there. Maybe instead of condemning Israel all the time, you could talk to Palestinians. You could work on them to be more accepting of the reality that Israel is going to stay here with us as a nation state, and there's nothing you could do about it. If you want a nation state yourself, you should accept that. Because if you don't, you're never going to have your nation state. Let's continue.
Lots of people believe in them.
But not Israel. So Israel wants us to act.
He says, but not Israel. Israel believes in Palestinians' right to exist. You know how I know this? Because in their attack on Gaza, in defense of what happened in October 7th, Israel's operation in Gaza was done in such a way to protect Palestinian lives more than any other army has ever done in the history of warfare. The reason why we have 40,000 people dying is because Gaza is the second or third most highly populated, the highest population density. When it comes to population density, it has the rank 2 or 3 in the world, is because the enemy that the IDF, Israel's military, is fighting does not wear uniforms. So it's hard to distinguish them. It's hard to distinguish between armed combatants and civilians. And 3, because Hamas uses human shields. And that has been proven beyond reasonable doubt that Hamas operates from right next to women and children and other civilians and men, civilians, in order to increase the civilian casualties so that they could buy your sympathy. And even with all of that, Israel has managed to. So you look at the 40,000 number and you say that's a very high number. But what the number that you don't take into account is the ratio of non-combatant to combatant. If you accept the Hamas numbers, also accept the IDF numbers, that shows that the ratio is lower than the average ratio of modern warfare. So Israel, in a place where with such high population density, where with an enemy that doesn't wear a uniform, with an enemy that uses human shield, Israel has managed to get a ratio of a casualty ratio of civilian to combatant lower than average in modern warfare. It's an absolute miracle. Every Israeli should be celebrating the way the IDF has managed to do that in such an area. This would be a miracle to pull off anywhere, but to be able to pull it off in Gaza, that's an absolute miracle. And Israel does that by warning civilians when they're going to be doing attacking. They drop leaflets, they do telephone calls, they have people on the ground there risking their lives, trying to redirect civilians to places where their bombardments, they're less heavy bombardments. They do explosions on top of buildings before they bomb the building so that the civilians could get out. The things, all the measure that the IDF, Israel's military take to try to reduce civilian casualties is above and beyond what is required by international law, and is above and beyond what any army has ever done in the history of warfare. That means that Israel's army respects Palestinians' right to live more than Hamas, more than their own government that they voted for. You want Israel to respect Palestinians' right to exist? Then get rid of Hamas. Because you know who doesn't recognize Palestinians' right to exist? This guy. Yahya Sinwar, Hamas leader, said civilian death toll could benefit militant group in Gaza war, Wall Street Journal reports. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar celebrating civilian death. You know which civilian death he's talking about? Palestinian civilians. He's not talking about Israeli civilians. He's celebrating the death of Palestinian civilians. The Israeli government, the Israeli nation state, is a nation state that gives its Arabs and Muslim population equal right to every single other citizen. That's why we celebrate Israel. There's no better place to be a Muslim than Israel. No other Arab country, no other Islamic country gives you more rights and freedoms than Israel. Israel is a nation state where it's the best place to be a Muslim. Israel is a nation state where Muslims enjoy equal rights and freedom to every other single citizen. And this is why we celebrate Israel as a country that values human lives, all human lives. You are a racist, sir, and you're insane. And your values are completely in contradiction to what made Western countries great.
Exist.
Government.
The Israeli government and the people who voted for them was, by the way, that like their society is becoming more and more radical. But like, let's say Israel government, like they put us through all of these moral checkpoints. Does Israel have the right to exist? Does Israel have the right to defend itself?
Yeah, answer it.
But when we ask them the same question about Palestinians, they have all of these like winding answers that they don't want to exist. They don't even want the right to other people to exist.
It's
Who says that? What the right again? So he's confused. He doesn't even understand basic concepts. When people are asking Israel right to exist, they're asking you about the nation state, not the individual people. What he's insane. Yeah, he doesn't even know the question.
Does Israel have the right to exist? Does Israel have the right to defend itself? But when we ask them the same question about Palestinians, they have all of these like winding answers that they don't want to exist. They don't even want the right to.
Yeah, when you ask who does he acts like the other side refuses to answer these questions as well. That's not true. You're talking about individual Palestinians. Ask me, guys, do Palestinians have the right to exist? Yes. Easy. Now you. Do Israelis, the people, have the right to exist? Yes. Does the nation state of Israel have the right to exist? Yes, based on international law, because Israel has been recognized as a nation state. What is the right to exist? What does the right to exist mean? Is based on law, is it legal for them to exist? Right? So remember, when we're talking about rights, we're talking about law. Does the nation state of Israel have the right to exist? Well, based on international law, Israel is recognized as a nation state. So check, yes, Israel has the right to exist. Let's go to the Palestinian side. Do the Palestinians have the right to exist? Now we're talking about people, individual. Yes, they do have the right to exist. Why? Because based on international law, humans have the right to life. So check for the Palestinian people. Now let's go to the Palestine as a nation state. So there's 4 questions. Does Palestine have the right to exist as a nation state? No, not yet. Maybe one day. Why? This 4th one is no, because Palestine is not recognized by international law as a nation state. So it does not exist as a nation state. So when you ask me if the Palestine has a right to exist, a nation state, no. If it did, it would be a nation state right now. So maybe one day it will have the right, but right now it doesn't have that right. Maybe you should work towards a world where it has that right by stopping the fight against Israel, by not electing a government that does October 7th. That would be a start to get that right, but now you don't have that right. So see how easy it was for me to answer these 4 questions? Now you answer the goddamn questions.
Other people to exist.
It's true. We're all in danger.
It doesn't make sense anymore. You understand? Does it make sense to you? This whole idea about like the moral checkpoint question that doesn't like lead to anywhere. And then when we ask,
oh, this moral checkpoint doesn't lead to anywhere. No, it makes many things clear. It doesn't lead. It leads to us understanding that either you or your audience or your fans don't want Israel to exist. So it has a utility. Don't act like it doesn't have a utility. So yes, it is. There is utility.
The same question about Palestinians. We are faced with like all kinds of things about their terrorists, their animals.
For these horrible, inhuman animals.
It just like doesn't make sense.
So who is he referring to? Is he talking about all Palestinians, or he's talking about Hamas? Because I've seen how you guys quote hunt without actually looking at the context. I mean, I don't like calling any humans animals because first of all, humans are animals. And also, when you call humans animals, I think people are not referring to other non-human animals. And I don't have anything against non-human animals. I don't know when did that become a slur. Okay, non-human animals. As a father of 2 baby girl dogs, I get I feel offended whenever somebody uses animals as an insult. I saw how the defense minister of Israel, when he was talking when he called them animals, he was specifically talking about Hamas, and everybody clips him out as if he's talking about all Palestinians. So I don't trust you guys when you do this.
Yes, we could talk about this endlessly.
Like all of these questions doesn't make it just fills the air. Useless questions.
No, it's not useless. I explain the utility of these questions.
Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Israel? Do you condemn Israel? Does it matter if you condemn?
No, you don't. You can't condemn Hamas, because Hamas as a whole has made it very clear that their goal is to do genocide on Jews and Israeli people. If you ask me, do you condemn Israel? I will answer you. No, I don't condemn Israel. But nobody should be able to condemn Israel, because Israel is not one thing. Israel is a mix of so many different people, many different views, right? So, for example, you maybe ask about the Likud party, ask about Benny Gantz, ask about a specific take, ask about a specific individual. I can condemn Hamas entirely as a whole, because the entirety of Hamas as a whole has put it in their charter that their goal is the destruction of Israel and Israeli people. That's why it's easy to generalize that, because they have generalized themselves. But when it comes to Israel, Israel is a nation state, and every nation state deserves defending, but Israel deserves it the most, because Israel's existence has been challenged the most, right? So you can't. Why? How could you condemn any nation state? Like I condemn Putin. I don't condemn Russia. Russia is a mix of people with many different views and ideologies. Why would I condemn the entirety of Russia? Right? I condemn Putin's actions, for example. So I don't condemn North Korea. I condemn, the government right now in North Korea, but I want the best for the North Korean people. I want them to be, when they liberated from the brutal dictator that they have. So no, I don't condemn any nation state. So you want me to answer that question? Do you condemn Israel? No. See, I don't run away from the question. Even that question, that was not a waste of time. Me answering it clarified a whole bunch of things. So see how I don't have to refuse answering that question, but you have to. You run away from. So maybe you say, no, do you condemn Hamas? Maybe say yes. Maybe they say no. But don't run away from it. You are afraid of this question because you refuse to answer it.